Okay, welcome back everyone to Asheville Vedic Astrology.com's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ryan's Vedic Astrology. We're continuing with our series, The Planets per Ascendant. We're currently on Aquarius. We've been talking with Kim and Desi. So far we've covered Saturn and Jupiter. And today we're going to be looking at Mars for an Aquarius Ascendant and how to best understand the qualities of Mars for an Aquarius Ascendant. So we've got Mars ruling over, what is it, the third house and the 10th house. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got third house and 10th house rulerships for Mars and Aquarius Ascendant. And we've got Mars debilitated in the 6th and exalted in the 12th. You know, again, it's just mind-boggling how these things can teach you so much about an ascendant. So let's think about Mars ruling the third house and the 10th house for an Aquarius Ascendant. When we think about the qualities of Mars, what does that tell us about an Aquarius Ascendant's relationship to peers, an Aquarius relationship Ascendant to work? And we'll go ahead and start with you, Desi, if you don't mind. What kind of insights does that bring up for you when we think about Mars and Aquarius Ascendant?
Possibly for an Aquarius, their peers are their enemies and competitors, and they probably don't get along with them well. I think Kim mentioned something like that. Mm-hmm. Something like her friends need to act like she's grateful for her friends because maybe with such a position, with the debilitation in the 6th house and the ruler of the 3rd house, maybe an Aquarius is not a very good friend.
Right.
So friends are enemies, and it's not a good idea to fight with one's friends.
Yes, well, okay, so I agree with much of that. And, again, Kim being our resident Aquarius Ascendant, what are your thoughts on that? Do you fight with your friends a lot, and do you have difficulties in that regard?
Yeah. I don't have friends. No.
It's true. I tried to be your friend once, and I was like, I can't handle it.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I just think that it's this dichotomy of you have a loner trying to figure out how to be in a group.
Right.
And on top of that, you have a loner that has a bunch of ideals now about this group. So with Mars ruling the 3rd house and then the 10th, giving it all that power, you're going to have ideals about how people should behave. And then when they don't, there's an instant Mars energy of combat.
Right.
Just get out. There's an action before any sort of thought. I never thought about Mars being debilitated in the 6th like that, but it's really interesting. It's almost like you're called to shake it up with friends. Like you shouldn't have routines, and that would make sense with the Aquarius who has to be able to see and move on from things that they've already grown.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Desi brought up the idea of competitors, and the reason she did that was because, the 3rd house represents feeling, or represents how we feel about our friends, and it represents our friends in general. But when we take that 3rd house Lord and we make it ruled by Mars and we stick it debilitated in the 6th, it can show, this is why she mentioned this, that trying to be competitive with your friends really hurts your friends or hurts your relationships with your friends. And when we think about the fact that, Mars is exalted in the 12th for an Aquarius Ascendant, the 12th house is a house where we have sacrifice and where we have loss, and it is the house of charity. And so oftentimes when it comes to our friends, you might have to take care of your friends. You might have to defend your friends. Your friends might not live up to your ideals, but it's the Aquarius Ascendant's goal to simply be there for them and give freely, to make this kind of natural sacrifice. And it's not competition in any way. It's simply a natural taking care of and giving, which helps to support that. But now let's consider the idea of the 10th house rulership, because we've got 3rd and 10th, which means, at least in my mind, that often the people that we do make friends with might be those people that we support in our career, or we tend to have more friendships with people that we're in careers with. For example, my late wife, Melissa, she was an Aquarius Ascendant, and all of her friends were career people. Whenever we'd go out on Friday, all the people around there, they'd just be talking about work, and all of her friends were work people. So Kim, again, being the Aquarius Ascendant, do you find that to be easier for you, or is that just a quirk with this other Aquarius that I had known?
No, I think it's pretty legit. It's like a lot of times I find Aquarians do feel sort of alone in a group, and so having that common interest,
right?
Otherwise, they'd just kind of rather be alone.
Right. And Desi, when you think about this rulership of Mars, Mars ruling the 10th house. Well, I guess what I would like to focus on is this. So we've got the 10th house lord debilitated in the 6th, right? So if a person's 10th house lord has a debilitation in the 6th, and it's Mars, what kind of problems, does that cause for an Aquarius Ascendant? Any thoughts on that, Desi?
Perhaps not picking the right fights at work. Maybe too idealistic. I saw one of your videos. I don't remember which one it was, but you were talking about the Saturn, Mercury, and Venus world signs, which are meant to... I forgot my thought now because I'm looking at the Aquarius chart.
Was that the videos that we're dealing with, they're meant to be more practically oriented in the world?
Yes,
Is that it? Yeah.
I mean that, exactly. They need to be more practically oriented, and instead of that, an Aquarius can be tempted to be, can be pulled towards idealism and not take care of the practical things at work. And this can be the downside of Mars.
Right.
As the 10th ruler.
Yeah, and tying it back into the previous video where we talked about Jupiter ruling the 2nd and the 11th house for an Aquarius Ascendant. And one of the things Kim mentioned, or maybe it was Desi, I don't remember, it's all spinning in my head at the moment, the idea of wanting to have a balance related to one's wealth and one's resources, because that Jupiter is exalted in the 6th, but it's debilitated in the 12th. And the same thing, at least it's my experience and my thought, is that with an Aquarius Ascendant, having that 10th lord debilitated in the 6th, is that the harder a person works and the harder they try to prove themselves in their work, the harder they try to support their ideals, in a sense, even change the world. In a lot of Aquarius Ascendants, I think that can hurt their health, right? Whereas having that 10th lord exalted in the 12th, that is also a house of surrender, where, as they say in the Bhagavad Gita, you're meant to, you are entitled to action only, but not the fruits of your action. So you're entitled to work, yes, but not necessarily to this great over idealism, as we would tie it here with Mars. Do you find that to be? How do you kind of see that, Kim? That idea of work and Mars debilitating the 6th and exalted in the 12th.
You kind of nailed it with the fact that if you keep pushing at something and you keep trying to get recognition from it, it's going to kind of take you out. Your health, it's going to fall apart. Saturn is meant to be in the background, doing his job humbly, quietly, consistently.
Right.
People get caught up in that. The other thing that I always find so fascinating about the 10th house being ruled by Mars is you've got a Scorpio on the 10th house. Immediately have like all this action and all this energy towards sort of psychologically breaking your breaking people down at work. And so you can get caught up a lot more in those sorts of just games within groups too, I think, with this being the 10th house.
Right. And one final thing that comes up, it just sort of triggered it with work, is it goes back to Jupiter, though. Now, Jupiter is a planet of forgiveness and a planet of grace. And when you've got Mars debilitated in the 6th, there can be a tendency, as you mentioned, to be maybe a little too critical of one's own work or one's colleagues, and that causes kind of a competition and difficulty there. But Jupiter is exalted in the 6th, which shows for an Aquarius ascendant can be very helpful to kind of look past immediate shortcomings and be forgiving of people who fail in work, and not necessarily get too caught up in the fact that everyone else doesn't have the same ideals as you. You know, for example, Melissa, she was very idealistic and she had a very strong drive, which was very helpful in her work. But there was also a side that did not allow her to, in a sense, get past not understanding why other people couldn't also live up to those ideals, right? And that wasn't a problem for other people because she was very kind to other people, but it was a problem for herself that caused stress. So it's learning to have that sense of forgiveness, acceptance, and grace for the people that you're working with, you know, related to that 6th house energy and the 12th house energy of Mars being exalted in the 12th house, you know, giving people some breathing room. I think what we can do, we can go ahead and conclude here with Mars and Aquarius Ascendant, unless, did you all have any other insights you'd like to share, or do you feel that we were good with that?
I thought of the 12th house as the results of one's battles.
Yes.
And because Mars is exalted there, finally, if an Aquarius ascendant works well with Mars, it should work out in the end well.
Right. Yeah. And so what you're saying there is that if the person has healthy idealism, if they pick the right fights, then the end result of all that struggle will actually be successful. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think you're right there. You know, we always got to remember that just because, you know, Saturn and Mars don't necessarily always get together or get along, that's the better way to put it, that Aquarius Ascendant has Mars for a reason, you know. And that is to pick the good fight. That is to have the proper idealism. That is not to drive oneself into the ground. Did you have something you wanted to add to that, Kim?
No, I was just excited that it could work out in the end.
Okay, all right, great. All right, good. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude here. So that was Mars for an Aquarius Ascendant. And again, it was wonderful to have Desi and Kim with us. So thank you two for being here.